live on Instagram. If that thing's going live.
Hey, we're live now on Facebook, it appears to be.
Oh, that's great. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the video stream of the audio podcast. This Guy's Got to Go, brought to you by Vote Common Good, the 501c4 that helps save America. You're welcome, America.
You're welcome.
Turns out we didn't do enough. Turns out getting rid of Donald Trump was what some of us feared, that you remove this cancer and it starts to spread. And that is exactly what has happened. And now we'll spend the rest of my life trying to rid this country, this world, of the white supremacists that are organizing to infiltrate our government and to overthrow it. I mean, here's the thing I don't get. They simultaneously want to overthrow the government and want their guy to be in charge of running it. Like it. Granted, consistency with the extremists and the conservative and religious right is not the thing that's their fundamental argument, that they're consistent. It's not really
their strong suit.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we said This Guy's Got to Go, which was during Vote Common Good shutdown non-travel period, our way of trying to make our argument on a regular basis that President Trump has to go. And I really thought, Robb Ryerse, co-host of This Guy's Got to Go, that that the country had sort of resoundingly answered this call to make this guy go. He was gone. That was it. We're done. And who would have ever dreamed that he could cause so much trouble that in his last 10 days in office, we still have to make an argument that he has to go before January 20th.
Yes.
All right. So, well,
hello. We were feeling so great Tuesday night, the win in Georgia. I mean, with Reverend Warnock being declared winner on.
I've added audio. Audio. Sounds like a morning show.
The production values are just through the roof of this show now.
Oh, it's.
So, I mean, with Reverend Warnock winning on Tuesday night, and then John Ossoff being declared the winner on Wednesday, it felt like such a profound victory. Felt like it was going to be, so much to celebrate. With Joe Biden clearly going to be certified as the winner of the Electoral College on Wednesday, it felt so fantastic, and then the wheels came off, and all of us that were, I think, expecting to feel a little bit of optimism and hope and goodness, ended up feeling, quite shaken by the events that took place at the Capitol on Wednesday, and those things cheered on by the President of the United States.
It's been a lot of fun to sort of be in opposition to this guy, right? It has felt empowering. It has allowed us to treat America like adults, and to travel and to make an argument and to join many others in asking Donald Trump to go. And sometimes between the media doom scrolling that I'll do through television channels or through Twitter and Facebook and my news feed, and the kind of value that there is to the news coverage, and then the work that we all do, it was easy to convince ourselves that somehow this man was not as dangerous as he was. Right? Because I didn't want to believe that anyone who's a citizen of this country, let alone someone who has taken on all the ramifications of being the president, and someone who has served as the president, now granted the worst president, totally incompetent, totally reckless, totally careless, just bad all the way around. I thought that he would have taken some level of care to become slightly presidential. And somehow he became less interested in the value of the presidency when he wasn't reelected. Like the drop off of him being even remotely a decent human being as the president of the United States is totally and completely gone.
Yeah. And we have on this podcast over the last year, we have kind of flipped back and forth in our discussion at times where we've talked about, like, is he really a fascist? Does he really want to be a dictator? And there have been times where I think, if I remember correctly, have made the argument that I actually don't think he does want to be a dictator. It seems like it's too much work. He seems lazier than that.
Yes.
and
It's hard being king.
He does not seem competent enough to want to run everything effective. Exactly. And yet, maybe we were wrong about that. It really, I mean, there's so many different ways to look at this, but like one of the things that's really fascinating is that, when you were dealing with a group of people that describe themselves as strict constructionists that want to take the words of the Constitution literally, there's a Venn diagram there with people who are fundamentalist and evangelical Christians who will say that they take the words of the Bible literally. They will say that they take the words of the Bible literally.
Especially the love your neighbor as you love yourself part.
Yeah, exactly.
Really committed to that. I mean,
really. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much of it, but you know what I mean? Like these are people that like that want, that desire and aspire to taking words literally. So when leaders, whether it's Donald Trump or his family or newly elected Congress people, say things like, this is our 1776 moment, and when they use the word fight, and when they say things like, this cannot be let to stand, this was fraudulent, that the media is the enemy of the people, and like they're saying these words to people who take words literally. And so, so I think there's some sense, and I think it was Mark Meadows even who today said on one of the political pundit shows said, he talking about the presidency, he wasn't being literal. I'm like, yeah,
really, he said it again. Mark Meadows said it again.
Yes.
Like we're going to walk down the street to the Capitol. He didn't mean walk down the street to the Capitol. What point, Mark, did he cease to become literal? Right.
Exactly. And you're talking to people that you should know take things literally. This is what they do. And they claim to, at least. And words create worlds. We have this sense that like rhetoric matters. And the way a president talks and what things are said have a way of creating reactions and creating a culture and a climate in which people act and react. And like this is on Donald Trump's head and hands, the travesty that happened at the Capitol building.
Okay, so I'm going to play a little, little devil's partner here, and say, oh no, I think Mark Meadows is right. When Donald Trump said, we're going to go down and we're going to cheer on our Congress people, he didn't mean cheer on. He meant break down the doors, break out the windows, and go in with zip ties. That's what he meant. So yeah, no, that's right. He wasn't being literal about cheering them on. He wasn't being literal about maybe not supporting Mike Pence. He meant hang him, because people know how to not take him literally, right? I mean, this whole nonsense,
and while
you ever have to explain to any leader the words of any leader, let alone someone who's been the president for 4 years. And this is the argument that we've been making this whole time. He has had 4 years to become the president. Even if you want to say, hey, I gave a shot to a businessman. So the fact that in his last week, all he cares about, and again, the fact that he is so reckless and careless, that when they put this whole thing together, the idea that he wouldn't have known that the people that support him watched what happened in what I think are very appropriate protests and racial responses this summer, and said, oh, we need one of those. And now we have something that is on par with, police murder. And by the way, because I've been wound up about this.
Yeah.
If you want to know the difference between, people that are out on the streets, as I was, what we were out on the streets saying to our government is stop killing people. What Donald Trump supporters are saying to their government is stop following the law.
Yeah.
So this whole idea that somehow there's some moral equivalency and this is your time to rise up and this is your voice and now you're going to take on the say her name kind of notion for the woman who was shot and killed, which I am terribly saddened by anybody who's shot and killed. I wish there were no guns so people couldn't be shot and killed. Absolutely. But if you're going to take on that notion, you have to know that what you're saying in your activity is you chose to trespass, to break into a government facility to demand that the people in power stop following the law. Think about that for a minute. This is not a protest that the law is wrong. This is not a protest that the law that is right is not being followed. This is a riot saying we want you to stop following the law.
Yeah.
Utterly stunning.
And Donald Trump turns his back on Mike Pence, who has been the most loyal person to him, inexplicably so for the last 4 years, turns his back on Mike Pence. There's an angry mob in the Capitol chanting, we're going to hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. And there's gallows erected outside of the Capitol building where Mike Pence is presiding over Congress. Donald Trump has fomented this violence, and the fact that we are now 4 days after this has happened, and he is still president of the United States is unconscionable to me.
Yes.
And listen, I supported impeachment, but I never expected it to actually, happen.
Yeah.
I expected him to be impeached, but not removed from office. I we have talked about him resigning. We have hoped that he would resign. I don't think I ever actually thought it was going to happen.
Right.
But
that it hasn't happened now is unreal.
He has to be removed from office.
Yes. And I don't think there's a mechanism. I don't think there's a mechanism that can be utilized right now because of the rules of the Senate.
Yeah.
If I have this right, and maybe people will find this slightly helpful.
Yeah.
The Senate operates under a set of rules, and it's important that they do. Right. I think what they've done with the rules is to have harmed the country by the rules they put in place. But if you're going to have them, you have to follow them. You can't go not following the rules because of a moment. Right.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And the current rule is that when the Senate is out of session to be brought back into session, all the senators have to agree that they'll come back. This is important. If we're going to have senators, and if senators are going to have independence from the Senate itself, they have to have full power as a representative of their state to be able to say, no, we're not going to get bossed around by the federal system because I represent my state to the federal system. So it's really important. And we just know that whether it's Tuberville or it's Josh Hawley or it's Ted Insurrection Cruz, any of these guys are going to say, no, we're not coming back. So that means they're not going to come back till the 19th. So, and that's the only way he's removed. He will be impeached, I think, my guess, someday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, or Thursday or Friday. And then to get the Senate into place, it's not going to happen. And that's a real problem. Okay. Like this guy has got to go is not going to end, because now we need to roll this over to, whether the podcast does or not, the instinct is not going to go away. Josh Hawley's got to go. Ted Insurrectionist Cruz has got to go. Other people coming along are going to have to go. Like we have to rise up and, focus our attention the way we have on Donald Trump. Yep. And another president could come along and do something so heinous while the Senate is out of session that you can't have the need for impeachment be held up by this normal set of rules. So the rules have to be fixed, because all of our structure around the relationship of the president to the other branches of government are built on the assumption that the person who's the president will act in a good, right, reasonable way, with politics and your reputation being the thing that will keep you on the straight and narrow. And Donald Trump is a guy who does not care. He will lie. And I mean, look, you can call him whatever you want. You can call him POTUS. You can call him Commander in Chief. You can call him Mr. President. You can call him Individual One in Michael Cohen's federal law case. You can call him Liar in Chief, but he is a pathological liar.
Yeah.
And when that's the case, the system doesn't work. And this is what's just so difficult, is that everyone knows the guy has to go. I mean, there's 2 seated Republican senators who are saying on this very day, oh, this guy has got to go.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them is just going to flat out say it. It's going to be so deep in their head after listening to this, this podcast.
And they are not senators who voted for his removal from office.
Not Mitt Romney.
Yes. So listen, can I have had a burr under my saddle that I have needed to unburden myself with, and I'm so happy that we are doing this special coup edition of the This Guy's Got to Go podcast.
Yeah. Hey, I know you're about to say, hey, stop the steal, because I'm gonna try to steal a moment from you here. I actually got literally a burr in my saddle today.
Oh,
literally. I got a fat bike, which is not a reference to the rider. It's a reference to the size of the tires. So I have this big wide tire bike, and you ride it in the snow. And I was riding in the snow, and I was trying these trails, and I fell off, which is what you do and want to do while you do this kind of thing, and fell into one of those burr patches where the little, I don't know what you have in Arkansas, but little round burrs, they were all over, including on my butt. And I sat on my seat and literally had a burr on my saddle. And I just thought, I'll save this at some point. This will come up, I'll be able to reference it. And you too have a burr in your saddle. So please, I know how important it is to get that out of it.
I'm feeling like I want to make a Vote Common Good bus ask COVID joke at this point, but now we're going to get the E on our little thing, because I just, used a bad word, but so anyways, so listen, we have made the observation on this podcast for almost a year now that one of the things that Donald Trump does, and that we can absolutely depend on him to do, is to project.
Yes.
He claims that his political opponents are doing the very thing that he and his team does.
Mm-hmm.
They claim, and we have seen this over and over and over again, this projection of this is what they do, this is what they would do in that situation, and so they assume that everybody else is doing that, and they project over and over and over again. And there are 2 instances of projection that I've observed that I don't think have been talked about enough. One is related to the insurrection at the Capitol, and this whole ridiculous Antifa is the one who's actually doing it. That's a projection. You remember what happened during the protests in Minneapolis and other places around the country, where Proud Boys, white supremacists,
Boogaloo Boys,
white nationalists, dressed up like Antifa and broke windows. I mean, there's literally video of white nationalists breaking windows, inciting violence, so that Antifa would be
I was gonna
would
say,
be
are you such an insider that
I
you call
listen,
it
yeah, well, listen, we won't even get into the
Antifa?
capital discussion.
Oh,
But
well, guilty as charged on that.
yeah.
Shelley came to me and goes, "Hey, you've been spelling capital wrong," and I'm like,
Well, I'm glad that maybe my
"Oh,
Facebook
no,
post
bro."
got Shelley to Google it
No, she
and learn.
gloated. No, she gloated
Good, excellent,
afterward
excellent.
when she saw you. She said, "Hey, even Robb," that's what she said to me. Even Robb.
Even Rob. What a shock that Rob would know the correct word to use.
No, what she's meaning is
So
people are
what?
piling on. Like
Yes.
it's so
What?
egregious.
No, it was so universally done, the incorrect use of capital and capital, that I did not even notice that you had done it. But what we have seen is there is this projection that what they did, they are now claiming and assuming and
Yes.
using as an excuse. Now, here's the other example of this. Voter suppression and illegally cast votes.
So you're saying what they did was that they suppressed voters and they've got a whole bunch of Republicans that voted for Donald Trump illegally.
They made a calculation and said, okay,
Yeah.
how many votes do we need to win?
Yeah.
We pick a number, and then they look at it and go, you know what? As long as we're doing this, let's make sure he
Wow.
gets more votes than anybody else has ever gotten, so that he can claim that he's the most popular president of all time.
And they just underestimated the additional 7 million real votes that Joe Biden was
Yes.
going to get. They're so bad at their jobs.
That is exactly what happened. They picked the 75 million number, thinking we're in the clear, and the frosting on the cake is he gets to be the most popular president of all time.
And that's why he's like, no, we rigged the system.
He did not. 75 million people did not vote for him. They figured out a way to cheat, and they now are accusing Democrats of doing that very thing that they did. We have seen this pattern of projection from this administration over and over and over and over again, and I have no evidence for this other than what we've observed for the last 4 years.
I like
this is what they do.
I like it. The other thing that's so ironic about this is the very argument that Donald Trump was planning to make 4 years ago right now, when he said it's such a rigged election in 2016. He said it ahead of time, because then when he loses, this is what he was planning. And all of a sudden it became not rigged, and they put together a whole commission to look into voter fraud, and there wasn't any. And then this year he started saying, well before the election, it's going to be rigged, it's fraudulent, don't trust it. Right? Like, what this guy has, he does it every time. He has a single playbook. He just projects what he would do, and then believes other people are going to do it, and then can't pivot, can't change, can't do any of this. But it really is, to your point earlier, it is so literally dangerous. And I've been back and forth wandering around my house here about what I think about, if he should be impeached or not. Like, that matters, right? Because I see the one argument that I don't want Donald Trump being a martyr. I don't want to watch a bunch of Republicans come to his side, right? Don't put them in a spot. And on the other hand, if you're going to have impeachment as an option for a seated president of the United States, and you don't use it when that person is part of an insurrection that's going on at another branch of the government, then don't have it. Right? Just say we don't have a means by which to remove the president. Because truly, 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 if you don't do it in this case, what set of conditions would be in place?
If you lie about a blowjob. That's the condition.
You know what else? It shows just what a bad leader Donald Trump is.
Oh, he's terrible.
Think about the argument that Cipollo and Mark Meadows and Cruz and Hawley are saying. These people, they did this on their own. Oh, really? So they've got his name on their hats. He has their name on their flags. They're literally wrapped in his name, but they're doing something he wouldn't want them to do.
Yeah.
So what? And they came to his rally and he spoke to them. And then in his name, they went out and did something he doesn't want them to do. Why is he so bad at communicating what his desires are for his political movement, where they would be so far off from what he wants?
Yeah.
What's the argument here? Again, I mean, this has been the argument all along. Either he is incompetent to a degree at which you cannot hold him for the words he says and for the actions that the people around him engage in, or he's a great leader and people respond to him and they are his voters and they are connected to him, but you can't fan the flames and then blame the fire.
Right.
Like that is just the piece of this that is separate from the fact that Republicans now have a whole other problem. And the last number I saw is that somewhere in the vicinity of 43% of Republicans think that storming the Capitol building was appropriate and that Donald Trump should stay in office. So again, of the 75 million,
it's a terrifying number.
40%, so less than half of the Republicans would say so. So what you have, like, Republicans are nowhere near the majority in this country, right? They're less than half because most people are nothing. So whatever group of Republicans, then half of that, a little less than half of that. So you say you've got 30 million people who believe that what he did was right, that this election was fraudulent, and that you have to storm the Capitol. Now look here. This is in all honesty. I never thought that in 2016 the election was fraudulent. I thought Russia interfered the way governments do. I never thought there was a polling place that lied about its numbers. I never thought there was a vote changed in a single voting machine. I didn't think any of that happened. A bunch of my friends do. I know a lot of people who think that happened. They're absolutely convinced that the votes were changed, that it was fraudulent. And if it was, if you believe that, and you believe that the people who were being voted for were part of it, and then you believe that there were people in Congress who were co-conspirators in this, I don't know what you would do. I mean, I wouldn't storm the Capitol in insurrection. That's not, but you would do something more than, like, you know, start a bus tour and travel the country and do a messaging campaign.
Post on Facebook,
right? Yeah. This is the problem and people on all sides have been really sloppy in the last 10 years, all the way back, I would maybe even say 20 years, with this idea that our elections are not safe, that everything is a rig, that everything is, that people aren't getting a fair shake. I mean, this was happening all across the board on the Democratic nomination side. This happened in our general election in 2016. It happened in our general election in 2000. And we really have to look at this as a country, because this idea that we are going to impugn the millions of people who work hard on our elections in this country. I mean, think about what you're saying when you're suggesting this, that the level of conspiracy inside of a party seeking a nomination or inside of a general election would be so high that your fellow citizens are conspiring to be sure that elections are not fair. And then we end up with this group of politicians. I mean, this is the thing that's always just blown my mind, right? Like,
that's right.
Who's rigging these elections and giving us these people? Right. It truly is. I mean, it's really something. But this is the place. Because this is where we're. Because you can use all the hyperbole about rigged elections, but what Donald Trump did was said to people repeatedly since before the election, this one is rigged. You have to do something about it. There's no one to save America other than he deputized an army to save this country. And if we keep sneaking around and being like, well, I don't want to like launch an army to invade, but I do want to claim that elections are rigged. Man, I'm telling you that these are the things that we all have to take seriously, because the indignation that all of us should feel about what these people did to our capital, what they did to our democracy, and what they've done to our country, we need to remind people every day, and every Republican needs to be tagged with this for the rest of their political careers.
Absolutely.
But then we can't be like fanning the flames ourselves, right, and then cursing the fire.
Yes. Yeah. And I think kind of what goes hand in hand with this is the recognition that maybe the revolution terminology isn't the best. Maybe we need to find some different rhetoric.
Yeah.
Because that revolution terminology exists on both sides.
Yeah, there's a
and listen, I'm not a
revolution.
Yeah, I'm not a both sides kind of guy, but there is like revolution terminology on both sides that like, wait, do we need to rethink this? I'm just asking the question. In light of words creating worlds and there actually being ramifications to rhetoric, like, is this terminology that needs to be rethought? Like, I think that's an important question that there's a lot of people that need to think about that.
Rob, I think that is exactly right. Because look, when you listen to the people that on January 6th were ransacking the Capitol building as in an insurrection, an act of sedition, when you listen to how they refer to that day, they don't refer to it as the day that the insurrection happened. They call it Inauguration Day of their new revolution. So what Donald Trump has done over 4 years is he has given cover and he has given organizing structure to these groups. And they are myriad. There are anti-government groups. There are Tea Party people. There are libertarians. There are full-on just Trumpers. There's QAnon conspiracy people.
There was a group of
national. There's national militias. All of these groups have come together. And what Donald Trump has done is he has organized the opposition to him, and he has organized the pro-Trump people, and they're referring to this as Inauguration Day, and they are not going to stop. Look, Rush Limbaugh sat himself behind a microphone when Bill Clinton got elected, and the best thing for Rush Limbaugh was 8 years of Bill Clinton's presidency, so that he could spend 8 years building up a group of loyal resistance. What these folks are going to do now is they're going to take the resistance and being outside the power structure, and that's key to organizing. The best thing you can do if you want to organize politically is lose, because that makes you fired up. And now this group of people are going to be and I know that the FBI and Homeland Security and everything is really serious about this, and they're going to stop coddling these people as they have for 25 years.
Please.
In churches, by the way, churches and Vote Common Good's going to launch a curriculum for churches on how to help people in your church not become radicalized into extremism, because churches are the primary place where people are hitting up these folks. Right. They're using social relationships of church communities. That's why there was a Jesus Saves and Jesus 2020 and a cross and a Bible and all of that in there. Now, look, I'm kind of glad anytime somebody takes their faith seriously and takes it to the street. I just wish these people didn't have that faith, and that's not the thing they were taking to the street. But this is what they're doing. They're going to organize this as a pseudo-religious movement to actualize people into extremism. And that's where we sit in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Can we talk about Twitter for a minute? Can we lighten things up a little bit and talk about the president getting kicked off of Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Google Plus? Is that still a thing? I don't think so. Snapchat, TikTok, and Pinterest even. I don't. Did the president? Was the president sharing a lot of recipes?
Recipe for disaster.
That's right. I think Pinterest just saw all these other social networks doing this and thought like, oh, we got to get on board.
MySpace is like, no way.
Friendster has kicked off Donald Trump.
All right.
So what are your thoughts about the de-Twitterification of Donald Trump?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's perfect timing. I was never one of these people to say get him off of there before. Look, I mean, I'm as opposed to Donald Trump's public service as I think I can possibly be. And if there's a shadow space at which I could do more, I would do it. But as the president of the United States, we need to see what he's up to. And I think he violated, but wasn't so extremist to have to be kicked off of those before. Then there was an insurrection. Then he said, I'm not going to be there at the inauguration. It's a free for all. And look, if you didn't take his comments that my followers will not be disrespected, his last two tweets, and oh, by the way, I won't be at the inauguration, as messaging, there's a soft target.
Yep.
Then like if that's new to you, just know that's what was going on. And that's what Twitter thought. And I'm not saying I was a genius on this. The moment I saw that tweet, I'm like, that's the scariest tweet I've seen. That's him saying, this is a soft target.
Yeah.
I think I
texted you that tweet, right? I think that was,
yeah. He has, I mean, even Robb Ryerse saw that.
Yeah.
It is so, that's the kind of thing that should get you kicked off, right? Not are you wrong politically, not are your views, because look, the First Amendment, and I know that Twitter is not held to First Amendment level of free speech, right?
Yep.
The First Amendment, by the way, says that Congress shall make no law, not Twitter shall make no decision, right? It's
yes,
not that
but we do have a
company can't tell you to step away, step down,
but
step back.
We do have a national ethos of people can share their opinion. It is technically true that the First Amendment does just apply to laws, and like Twitter can do what they want. But we do have this kind of national ethos of that people can speak their mind. But what Trump did is he clearly crossed the line, and some people, I kind of have a too little too late kind of perspective about Twitter kicking Trump off. But my fear is with this whole Twitter thing and Parler being cut off by Apple and Google, and now Amazon cutting the servers for Parler, that it seems like they're going to be offline tomorrow. Which
is true? They'll find another hosting site, I'm sure.
Yeah. But Amazon's cutting Amazon Web Services is cutting Parler off tomorrow. I really worry about all of this backfiring.
Oh.
And inflaming the passions of the pro-Trump folks. And that's not to say that I disagree with the decisions, because I don't. I just am very nervous about what the consequences of these decisions are going to be by the big tech companies.
Oh yeah, look, and you may be right, and maybe that's going to be something that we're ultimately going to look back on. My feeling, though, is that the fuel that allows all of this to happen is the ease of communication and the imprimatur of legitimacy that's put on it. Sure, people are going to get angry, and
say that again.
That the ease of communication to conspire is important, and the imprimatur of legitimacy. That hey, we're just doing this. The imprimatur. Yes, the application or the giving over.
All I know is the difference between capital and capital. I don't know.
Capital and capital. When someone gives the imprimatur, they give the legitimacy. They give the name. They give the certification. And when legitimacy is given by, hey, we're just out where everybody else is. It's like when you were a kid and the adult magazines at the store, at the convenience store, were back behind the counter, not out with the other ones, and they were covered up. There was this thing that said, hey, yeah, we know people are going to read those, but they're not going to be out with the other magazines, right? They're going to be back here.
Can I give you a little window into my life?
Yes.
When I was in 7th grade, my mother led a protest against, I think it was a CVS that was in our town, because they had the Playboy and the Penthouse out with the other magazines, and she led a protest to have them moved back behind the counter. So
she said,
I know
you do not get the imprimatur of the magazine rack. You get put back behind.
Little part of my personal history there.
Well, look, she's been an activist. Good.
Yeah. What every teenage boy wants is their mom. I fear she's pro at this point, but what every teenage boy wants is their mom protesting publicly against pornography.
Yeah. Well, my kids would say they don't want their mom noodling around in the public school trying to change the lunch menu options. Like
because they weren't healthy enough.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it might be embarrassing that she's standing up for pornography, but when you're standing up to like the pop machine and the pizza lunch,
carrots. We're getting carrots because of Mrs. Pagitt.
Yeah. Because Taylor Pagitt's mom said we can't have fun at school. Yeah, that'll figure it. So look, so back to the Twitters and all this, and so right, like I think it will slow them up, and these people are dangerous. I don't take them lightly. Of course they're dangerous, but you know why they were there? Because someone organized.
Right.
The Women for America group organized this thing. And by the way, there's a myth in our country that men are the Trump supporters and women are the resistance.
Yeah.
May it be so, but it's not there yet. In fact, more than 50% of women voters voted for Donald Trump in this election. And the number of women, whether it's in his administration, on his cabinet, or in social media, and being there's a lot of work to do in every single area. We have to be getting after this. Yeah. So what happened was people organized and they made it possible for people to show up. And the fact that they had a permit where they could meet out right down the street from the Capitol, that's what allowed all of it to happen. You start making all of that more difficult, and yes, they'll be angry, but what are they going to do about it? So I think, what you always do when the United States government wants to take on a terrorist group, what it goes after first is its communication.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. To recognize what's happening in this country is that and they're not saying we'll treat Donald Trump like he's a terrorist. They will say there was a domestic terrorist action in the United States. The president is tied up in it. And these people, we need to apply all the sources. So, look, I'm not always proud of what our government does, and our government's planning to execute 4 of our own citizens next week, and we're going to try to, raise a moral voice of objection to that next week. So you'll be hearing more about that. So I'm not all pro that whatever the government does sort of works, but the fact that the FBI and the national security and the police are out rounding up the people who are most famous in that insurrection to be sure the message is clear. No, this will not stand. And for Donald Trump to be kicked off of Twitter, and for Parler to basically functionally be shut down, and for people to have to crawl back behind the counter of the cruddy little superette that they're shopping in to get into that stuff, is way better than having these people parading out with a podium, their feet up on Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House's desk, and bragging all over the place about the fact that the Capitol Police are on their side.
Yep.
So
and I would
just what this is ultimately going to be about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right, which is why the president's your point about communication is so important, which is why the president has his campaign so consistently against the media in the United States, because he understands how important communication is. So we've got a question from Liz, who's one of our who's been tracking along with us,
Thank
for
you,
the
Liz.
last 45 minutes, which is amazing. Liz commented and asked this question about, to your point about it being, I'm just going to read her comment. To your point about it being code in Trump's last two tweets, why isn't Pence removing his power? Why does he need to do more before he acts? What's the deal with Mike Pence?
Look, Mike Pence has been the Burr in my saddle personally for years.
That's an excellent callback.
When he was a radio host in Indiana, when he was a congressman, I had my eye on this guy, and watching the way he is manipulated and used. It first triggered me was how he used religion and politics in a way that I found to be just, a hazard to the well-being of the people of faith in this country. So will I ever try to explain Mike Pence other than who knows what motivates that guy? There is a possibility, though, that Mike Pence has already asked around to people on the cabinet, and he needs to get the majority of the cabinet plus him to remove the president for the 25th Amendment.
Yep.
Using the 25th Amendment, which means the president is unfit for office. It doesn't, the 25th Amendment, as far as I understand, it doesn't say because the president's bad or dangerous or mean. It said he's unfit. So that's an enormous, enormous step to take. I know we've been saying 25th Amendment, in this country, since the day he was elected, right?
Yes,
and has he shown himself to be mentally unfit for office? Is he morally unfit? Yes. But is that what
Absolutely.
The 25th Amendment is about?
Right.
Of course he's morally unfit. Has that ever been in question? I mean, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham claimed that he was when they were running against him. And he's only behaved more in the way that he was behaving when they made those claims. So of course. So should we really be saying that Mike Pence is the answer to this? Now, on the other hand, there is no other answer to it because the legislative branch doesn't seem to have an answer to it. So the rest of us just have to time it out and wait for it.
Yep.
Now, what I think the Congress ought to do is impeach him on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Wait to send the articles to the Senate until after the 100 days or until the Biden-Harris administration can get settled and get in, and then take this up down the road. After Trump is out of office, there's no hurry on pushing his indictment, which is what an impeachment is, to its trial. The trial can wait, and Trump can spend $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 getting his defense ready. That would be great. Now, what will he do? He'll go out and raise a bunch of money to do that. He'll go out and raise, all kinds of awareness and say they're coming after me. They won't leave me alone. The bully running down the down the street crying that he got punched in the nose.
But if he's convicted in that trial, what it means, the impact of that is he does not get the $200,000 a year, pension that a former president gets, which frankly he needs because he's like we saw some of his tax returns. He's not a rich man. So he needs that. He would lose that. He would lose the ability to run again. He would lose the ability to have like all of the, the pomp and circumstance that goes along with being a former president. So actually convicting him, even after he's left office, I think symbolically, as well as like the kind of minor impact of that in terms of like, listen, in terms of the federal budget, $200,000 a year is nothing.
Yeah, it's been budgeted.
It's nothing. It's me, buying a Coke when I get some gas, which I don't really do, so I don't know why I use that as an illustration. But he absolutely has to be convicted. He absolutely has to be convicted.
Yeah, right.
And if that happens in the next 10 days before he's removed from office or after that, I'm good with either. And if he's convicted, he can never run for federal office again.
Yeah. Well, so as it turns out, and I could be wrong about this, but I was noodling around on the internets about this. After you're convicted, then there's a series of sentences that can be applied to you. So the impeachment is the indictment, the claim that you did this wrong thing. The trial is like a trial. You're found guilty or not guilty. Last time they found him not guilty. Then after that, there's a sentencing, just like in criminal law. And the sentencing then has a range of things they can do, of which they could say you can never run for office again. They can say you don't get your pension and you don't get your administrative assistant person, and you don't get your Secret Service detail. These are and you don't get the pomp and circumstance. These are things that they can apply or don't apply. So right away they can just say, well, we don't have to worry about the one that's sort of most influential, which is to remove you from office because you're already not in office. So it might leave those others to feel about right. Now,
that's interesting.
Now, and I'm not trying to make any moral equivalency whatsoever. Any other president that leads an insurrection, or frankly, that doesn't speak out against an insurrection and doesn't try to use all the power of their presidency to stop one, that person should be impeached. And whether they do it on the last day they're in office,
that's right.
Because think about what you're essentially saying. If you say, well, we don't do it after he's out of office, right?
Yep.
Well,
yep. So let me ask you this, Doug.
I want to be convicted of all of those things. And I think they're all a way that the moral claim in this country that what he did is wrong. Then what can you do about it? Now look, here's the thing about justice and criminality. Punishment never brings justice.
That's right.
Right. This is the idea that we have a justice system. No, what we have is we have a punishment system.
Yes.
Justice is something that people do in their own hearts and lives. And the idea, because if you've ever been violated by someone, and then there were, whether that was they cheated you or they smashed your car or they broke into your place or they physically harmed you, and then some consequence comes to them. Almost no one I've ever known has said, no, that's good. That feels about right. I think we're back in the game here. No one feels that way, right?
Yeah.
You still go to bed feeling this, so the idea that something's going to happen to Donald Trump, any of those things, and then we're all going to say, oh, good, now it's made right. It isn't going to be made right because there's no making this right. The 5 people that died, damage to this country. So we have to separate out making it right. And this is just, my little lecture and sermonette on this kind of thing. No matter what the crime is, we have to separate out making it right from be sure the person is paid what they earned. In other words, don't cheat them. If someone works for you for an hour and you were going to pay them $100, pay them $100. If someone wrongs you, they should get the payment for that as well. This is about reciprocity and a deal. It's not about justice. So we have to make sure that in this country, we're not somehow building up our expectation that somehow we're going to feel like, okay, good, he got what came to him.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot what this is doing for a lot of us is stirring up our issues of how we feel about the government, what we think about justice, how we feel about the systems that are in place, who should be doing what. Look, a lot of us feel good that Donald Trump can't be on Twitter for the rest of his life, like it's a grounding or something, like,
yes.
Well,
he got grounded from his phone.
Yeah. Take your phone away from you.
Yeah. So Doug, let me ask you about this. Corie Bush, newly elected Congresswoman from St. Louis, is a dear friend of mine, and I absolutely adore Corie, and I'm so thrilled that she is representing the people of St. Louis in Congress now. She is going to introduce tomorrow legislation that would reject the seating of Republicans who voted in favor of questioning the election.
This is in the new Senate
of Joe Biden. Yeah, in the new Congress. So the 120 some Republicans who voted to audit the election. Corie is Congresswoman Bush is introducing legislation that would unseat them as representatives. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I do think there needs to be a censure of some kind. And to me, it's because the set of conditions around this claim. I think in 2016, there were some congressmen and women who voted against the electoral.
Yes, and it's happened in the past.
And it's happened.
Dianne Feinstein has done it in the past. Like it's not an uncommon thing.
And this is where these symbolic kind of, I'm going to use something to make a point, whether from a previous conversation, it's the rhetoric we use and the language we use, or these actions. When people use them for other purposes, you realize how dangerous they are. So people there should be more justice around this. Whether or not any of the people who supported this before January 6th, in my mind, I just think the afternoon of January 6th changed everything. When people were in a world where they were saying, look, we know he's going to be elected. We just want to use this one moment we have. I'm not an apologist for them. I just think this is what they're saying. I want to take this moment when people are focused on this, when it has to do with my job. I want to raise this issue and say, I think we need to look at these things. Now, I think they had many, many better ways to do it than what they did. But that's one argument. After the Capitol is run over and people are killed, and then that what's fueled all of that is this argument, and then you still double down on it.
Yeah,
that's different. So I don't know if it's the 140 or whatever that initially signed on to it, but all the people after, including Josh Hawley and Ted Insurrectionist Cruz and Representative Gomer, the ones who pushed this again at 9 and 10 and 11 o'clock at night. And I sat there and watched it. Maybe you did too. And watched these people make these arguments again. And all the other people pulled back except Hawley and Cruz and Gomer and maybe one or two others. And those people who then still looked at this with all of the implication of what they were doing and said, we're still going to go back into conference because I want to be on the record of what side I'm on. Yeah. When you picked being on the side of the insurrectionists at that moment, then I think something more severe has to happen. And look, the best thing we could ever do, and that we've been saying this from the very start, is to have the voters of this country be the jury,
which they were, and we have elected Joe Biden to be our president
by 80 million, 180 million, 380 million.
That's right.
How many
million? We just make up the numbers now. And Doug,
and maybe we had on the record. The Biden-Harris ticket has been my choice, since all this was coming together. I'm personally thrilled.
Yeah, not so much mine, but that's a whole different conversation that we won't get into.
Storm in the castle.
Are we allowed to make Storm in the Castle jokes yet?
Yeah.
So
Storm in the Castle.
So to let our yeah, exactly. To let our faithful listeners know, we're going to be in Washington D.C. for the inauguration.
Yeah, both of us going in on the 19th. Staying
until the 21st. Is your wife as excited about this as my wife is?
She's unconcerned.
Oh, well, maybe could you have her call my wife?
No, I don't want her to become concerned.
Oh.
Going to be there.
I thought that was going to go the other way.
And we're gonna run an event, a live stream event on the night of the inauguration, which is Wednesday, January 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern time. There'll be a whole bunch of your favorite Vote Common Good casting characters talking about the celebration and what we need to do to move forward. And then the next day launches, this podcast has been sporadic when necessary. We're getting more serious about this. And the new podcast structure is going to be a daily podcast and then a more produced podcast on the weekend. So you're going to see a lot more content coming out from us on the Vote Common Good side, especially through 2021 as we prepare ourselves for 2022.
That's right.
And there's just a lot of
So we don't know. I would think I would be surprised. I think I would be surprised if it's called "This Guy's Got to Go." But at some point,
at Joe Biden's age, as somebody who also pees regularly, I think that could have a whole other thing to it.
That's right. But at some point this podcast might get a new name. But we're going to be pretty faithful on Tuesdays, and we're going to incorporate some conversation with other folks and continue to bring our political commentary to everybody who apparently finds it both amusing and informative. Not the least of which is my sister Kathy, who texted me that she was so excited that we were back and is going to listen on her lunch break, which is fantastic.
Well, thank you. I got a message from someone that said the title for these was "This Guy Has Got to Go." So there's a typo.
Did you get that edited yet?
I don't know. Maybe I asked Britton if he had edited it during the middle of all this.
Yeah.
Hey, I noticed you raised your pen, and I thought, is that a Tull? Is that a TUL?
It is. It is a Tull pen.
I have the same pen.
Look at that! How crazy is that?
Yeah,
mine's blue though. I'm a blue ink guy.
Oh, I have them in many a color. This is my favorite pen. In fact, This Guy's Got to Go. Another Vote Common Good podcast. Brought to you by our sponsor, Tull.
Hey, Tull, if you're listening, we
pay up.
We'd like to talk.
Yeah. I'm just going to send him an invoice, and I'm going to send him this thing, and just maybe somebody in like billing will just be like, I don't know, we're sponsoring a podcast. But really, truly the best pen. If you're into pens, man, I mean, they're not the cheapest pen you're going to get, but also, they're not a fountain.
Yeah, they're not the most expensive either.
Yeah, but just the best. I mean, all right. Well, hey, thanks everybody. If you've been watching on Instagram, I would love to know how this works. Instagram is like the kid that won't play with the other kids.
But Donald Trump is not there anymore. Kicked off of Instagram as well.
Figuring out, I mean, we can put this stuff to Periscope and to Twitter and to YouTube and to all the Facebook channels all at the same time. And then Instagram is special. So I have a whole other setup with a phone over here pointing at an iPad where I'm sharing. I mean, thanks Instagram for this amount of work.
Yeah.
You piece of work. Hey, thanks to our producer, Vote Common Good. This Guy's Got to Go podcast, brought to you by Robb Ryerse. Pagitt is your host, and production help from Dan Dietrich. That's it. 3 guys. And our daily podcasts are going to have many more characters in it, but still not as many as you hear at the end of a This American Life episode that are rattled off, on all the people that are involved in all those things. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for being part of it. And
final word is go Browns.
Which is a football reference.
Yes. Go Browns.
One more thing. One more minute.
We're coming back. This is like the thing after the credits.
This is after the credits. Before you go, I heard that part of what caused Senator-elect Raphael Warnock, the Reverend Raphael Warnock, to uptick in attention is that the WNBA team in Georgia, the Dream, wore Vote Warnock shirts for their warm-ups.
It's absolutely true.
And part of what makes it great is, do you know who the co-owner of that WNBA team is? Kelly Loeffler.
Yeah.
The woman that Warnock was running against is the co-owner of the team, and that team wore Warnock's Vote for Warnock shirt. I mean, so I don't follow sports, and I've stopped following professional sports as a statement guy. I think I might become somebody who starts paying attention to the WNBA though, because the WNBA, the Women's Basketball Association of the NBA, has been out in front on all of these issues. They were out on race. They were out on pay equity. They were out on politics. They're fantastic. Rob has lost his audio completely. He can't hear me at all. Well, all right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being around. And, your earbuds died. Unbelievable. Get a cord. Telling you to get a cord. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being a part of all this. We will see you on the other side. And hey, faith, hope, and love for a change on election day and every day. See you.